On this podcast episode, we are going to talk about how to manage traumatized kids' behaviors. So, if you have a child with trauma, maybe you have an adopted child, maybe your child has been gone through a lot of things, maybe a divorce, or maybe the death of a parent, or maybe they have lived trauma in their lives. But then you see behaviors as well, such as the meltdowns, the yelling, the hitting, the crying, and you don't know how to manage it in a way that is sensitive to their needs, but at the same time that you get better behavior and cooperation and a mutual understanding with them. If that is you, this is the podcast episode for you because I'm going to walk you through how to manage traumatized kids. I am Marcela Collier. I am a certified parenting coach. I help parents of children, of highly sensitive children. Many of these children have trauma, break away from reactivity so they can parent their children with peace. I did therapeutic foster care for 10 years to children. I provided this service to children who live trauma, very chronic trauma, hard trauma in their lives. And then, yeah, so I do have a lot of experience helping traumatized kids with their with with their traumas and engaging in society in a way that they feel that they feel safe and that they feel secure, and then they are able to navigate life in a healthy way. And as well, I am a trauma survivor too. So if that is you, if you have a child with trauma and you don't know how to handle those hard behaviors, I'm so glad that you're here because I cannot wait to share with you what I've learned along the way and what I learned from my therapeutic training and my parenting coaching training so you can serve your children the best way possible. Okay, so if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you've been liking it, would you leave us a positive review? Just open the description of this podcast episode and then hopefully you can give us a 5-star positive review so that could help us get to more parents. Welcome to another episode of the Parenting with Understanding podcast. This is your host, Marcela Collier, and I'm so happy that you're here. Okay, so first things first, let's address what trauma is. Because we may have a notion of what trauma is based on really hard experiences. They experienced, physical abuse to a degree that yes, that for sure that is trauma. But in reality, trauma is the injury of a nervous system based on the perception of safety. What does that mean? Let's just say that two people live the same experience, and one of them might develop trauma from that experience, and while the other one might have not developed trauma based on how they perceive that experience. And if one of those people perceive the experience stressful within their window of tolerance, then that person might not be developing trauma. But if the other person experiences the same thing, the same experience outside of their window of tolerance, based on their emotional maturity, based on their diagnosis, based on their age, based on their sense of self, then they might have developed trauma. So trauma is not necessarily caused by specific events that you may say, like, yeah, for sure, this would give someone trauma. No, this is not big enough to give someone trauma. Trauma is developed based on the experience that that person had, based on their ability to manage that love or stress at that moment. So let's just say in the case of a divorce, one child may develop trauma from it. Might the sibling, while the sibling that lived the same experience might not have developed the same trauma. based on their window of tolerance, their age, how much they can understand, etc. So I hope that's clear. Imagine trauma as a nervous system sunburn. I like to define it as well, that way as well. So just imagine, I don't know if you've ever gotten a sunburn. Imagine that you have a big sunburn. How do you behave when you have a sunburn? Would you be allowed to be touched? Would you allow to be touched the same way as you didn't have a sunburn? Would you walk outside the same way as when you didn't have a sunburn? Would you walk in the shower the same way as when you didn't have a sunburn? If somebody slightly touches you, would you react the same way as you didn't have a sunburn? No, because even to the slightest touch, it hurts. What touch that certain touch may not trigger someone with a sunburn is going to trigger you who has a sunburn. So even the slightest things that could touch that trauma that may cause a traumatic reaction could send a person to very intense emotions and behaviors as well. That creates a cycle, or that creates effects behaviorally in kids. So they might be unpredictable. You might be with a traumatized kid. They might have intense outbursts out of nowhere because someone touched their nervous system sunburn, and it's not obvious to the not sunburned person's eye. So I raised a child with trauma, and that happened to him. When his sunburn was touched in the slightest way, when he heard a male voice similar to that male voice who heard him, even if it was far away, it sent him always to a big traumatic response, a meltdown of yelling, of kicking, of screaming. And he didn't even know what triggered it, because it's not a logical process, it's a nervous system response. So even if I asked him what happened, he didn't know how to explain what happened, because it happened at a nervous system level, not at a conscious logical level. So they may have unexpected behaviors coming up. They may struggle with changes. Just imagine something. Just imagine that you have your sunburn and you are in the shower, and then you're kind of covering your sunburn, and all of a sudden a change happened. The temperature changed a little bit a little slighter hotter. I don't know if that's an expression, but it became a little hotter. That alone could trigger that sunburn and could make you jump out of the shower and have a big reaction, compared to someone who doesn't have a sunburn and the water just turned a little bit hotter unexpectedly. They will have the tolerance to go through the experience without going overboard. So have they may struggle with changes. The ability to problem solve diminishes, because trauma survivors, they may live a lot in their survival brain, because that's what keeps them safe. Their survival brain doesn't troubleshoot, doesn't brainstorm, doesn't come up with solutions to conflict. It just helps you survive with fight, flight, or freeze responses. So when we try to logic our way with our traumatized kids, like, just take a deep breath. You're okay. You just, the banana just fell to the floor. That might not help because they are in their survival brain. They have their ability to problem solve is not there yet. They may struggle to think flexibly. Flexibly? Is that the right pronunciation? I hope it is. So let's go back to the sunburn. What about, let's just say you are showering and then that sunburn is there, and then the water turned a little hotter, and then your flexible thinking of someone who doesn't have a sunburn might be like, okay, let me see. Maybe if I turn the water thing at the others, like if I turn it a little bit to the other side, I might regulate the temperature. You can be flexible and adapt to the change. But that trauma survivor, that person with that sunburn, is not in troubleshooting mindset. Is not inflexible mindset. Is not going with the flow. Is trying to run away from something that feels really painful for them. So traumatized kids have a big emotional nervous system sunburn. And these may take to struggling with unexpected changes, their ability to problem solve, and their ability to be flexible. Now, research has proved time to time again that trauma changes the brain. Dr. Burkett Harris, he did MRIs in traumatized brains and he noticed two big changes. Change number one, the hippocampus is a little shrinked or a lot shrinked. Wow, this is a big finding because the hippocampus is in charge of memory and emotional regulation. So if a parent of a traumatized kid tell me, I told them a million times that if they're feeling upset, they can take deep breaths. How come they're not taking deep breaths? Remember that their hippocampus in charge of memory, of recalling that what you told them, is a lot smaller compared to peers. And their ability of emotional regulation is not there yet. It's even a lot weaker than peers their age. So just imagine a child who, by nature, doesn't have a lot of emotional regulation skills. And on top of that, let's say that they have trauma. And let's just say on top of that, they are neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD. Do you have an autistic child? Oy, wow. Talking about sunburn, I just had a little paper cut on my finger. So imagine a child not just with trauma, but with other conditions, with a different brain. So there are some professionals, including Dr. Manon de la Hook, that says that trauma is a brain injury because it does change the brain. It changes the hippocampus. It makes it a lot smaller. And the second change that it makes on the brain is that it enlarges the amygdala. What is the amygdala? The amygdala is the brain's fear center. The fight, flight, or freeze. So just imagine someone with an enlarged amygdala and a shrinked hippocampus walking around in life without the ability to recall memory to help themselves cope with life, without the ability of emotional regulation, and always living in their fear centers because their amygdala is so big. Just imagine that. That's what a traumatized brain has to live with. So, those are the changes in the brain when there is trauma. I have a question for you. If you do have trauma, Do you remember your childhood? Do you remember your childhood? If you don't remember your childhood, it makes sense because remember that trauma shrinks the hippocampus that is in charge of memory. Do you live on edge? Do you live that you're walking on eggshells all the time? It makes sense because trauma enlarges the amygdala, which is in charge of the fear centers of the brain's survival responses. So it makes sense why you live on eggshells. So, Marcela, if I'm raising a child with trauma, then what? Is there hope for us? Absolutely yes. Brain science, brain science gives us a lot of hope because there is something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the not the child's the brain's ability to regenerate new and build new neural connections based on new experiences. So there is actually hope to calm down the amygdala and to enlarge your child's hippocampus and strengthen their cues for safety. So let's talk about this. What has been done and what could be best? A lot of children with trauma who experience um, quote unquote bad behaviors, which I don't consider them bad behaviors, they're just adapted behaviors to trauma. But just for the sake of understanding each other, who display bad behaviors. Throwing chairs across the room in the classroom, example. That was real life story from my child, one of my children in therapeutic care. What has been done lately? No, what has been done up until now? It's be addressing trauma related behaviors with behavioral plans instead of safety plans for the child. Those behaviors, throwing chairs across the room in the classroom, are adaptive responses to trauma, not misbehaviors, but they're addressed as misbehavior with behavioral plans based on rewards systems, based on consequences, based on lunch detention, based on days of suspension, based on timeouts at home, based on yelling at home, based on signing behavior contracts at home, based on you have to promise me you won't do it again. None of that will help a traumatized child improve a behavior that is directly correlated to their trauma. Behavioral plans don't help traumatized kids. And then there is the other side of the spectrum of medicating kids to a point that they're so lethargic that they are not even able to thrive at school and pay attention to their teacher. I'm not saying that I'm against meds because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. When it comes to that, consult them. But what I'm trying to say here, and this is my critic to those kind of responses, when that's the only thing that you have in place, the meds is the only thing that you have in place to help your traumatized child improve their behaviors, that's not the way to go. If a behavioral plan is the only thing that you have in place to help your child, your traumatized child, with their trauma based behaviors, that's not the way to go. We need to stop targeting behaviors and start targeting relationships. Because a child's traumatized brain will start healing when there are cues of safety coming their way. And there is only safety when they feel connected to someone bigger than them, more resource than them, and with the brain that with fully developed brain, caring, loving, and understanding, secure, ready to help them. I saw the video of a mom. No, it wasn't a mom. It was actually a stepdad with his stepdaughter, and he was fixing her bike. He was fixing his stepdaughter's bike, and she was complaining. She was, my dad would have done a better job than you. My dad would have done it faster. My dad would have done it better. My dad would have done it easier. And then the stepdad, he took it very personally. Insecure, very insecure man. He took it very personally and he responded to her, okay, so just go to jail and tell his dad to come out of jail right now and come and fix your bike. And he left. And I was like, wow, this is a traumatized child having a trauma response behavior. And this insecure man missed the cue. He missed the cue the child was giving him of, I have trauma because I experienced my dad being in jail. By the way, incarcerated parents is on the list of adverse childhood experiences. It's on the list of what causes children trauma. So, very possible this child has trauma. So, he missed the cue of his daughter, his stepdaughter, telling him, I'm struggling right now processing the fact that my dad is in jail and that you're here helping me with my bike and not him. He missed that because he was so insecure. He was so insecure to take that behavior personally. And then that created relational and safety for her. Because the same way that she saw her dad leaving her because he was going to jail, at the moment he was seeing her stepdad leaving her at that specific moment with those big emotions. He missed a beautiful opportunity to connect with her and build a relationship with her, and listening to her and consoling her. He missed a beautiful opportunity to help this child feel safe. Let's do the exercise right now. Let's do it with me. What was this child feeling at that moment? If you could tell me what was this child feeling at that moment, let me know in the comments. Maybe she was feeling sad. She was missing her dad. Maybe she was feeling confused. Maybe she was feeling angry that the stepdad was helping her with her bike and not her dad. Maybe she was feeling abandoned. What was she feeling? Let's keep going with this exercise. What was she needing from her stepdad at that moment? What was she needing? She might be needing comfort. She might be needing emotional processing. She might be needing an I'm sorry. She might be needing you don't deserve this. It's not your fault that your dad is in jail. She might be blaming herself. Children, Allah, blame themselves for their parents' mistakes. She might be needing cues of consistency and safety. I know that you love your dad, and I'm your stepdad, and we're just getting to know each other. But I promise you, I would do everything that is in my power for you to feel safe, for you to feel happy, and for you to feel comfortable with me, even if I'm not your dad. I know I'm not your dad, and I'm not pretending to replace your dad by any means. How beautiful that would have been for this little girl. I just want to cry. How beautiful that would have been. It would have healed her trauma. Maybe not all the way, but it would have been the start of her healing. So, traumatized behaviors, they do feel really annoying because they're going to come in the form of complaining, aggression, attacking us emotionally or physically. They're going to come with not being flexible, struggling to adapt to changes. They're going to come with all that. They're not going to openly say, I'm just struggling with my dad being in jail right now. So they're going to come with the outside behaviors, and it is our job to address their needs and their feelings instead of taking it personal and having them pay for having a trauma response at that moment, for struggling with trauma. So let's talk about what helps these children. But before we go there, if this story touched you and you're like, I have a traumatized child and I have not always been the secure parent that you need. I deal with reactivity and I wanna get better at it, but I don't know how to break away from yelling and blaming my child and scolding them, and I want to do better. If that is you, I have an invitation. My mission as a parenting coach and the mission of my coaches in HIC parenting is to help parents like you with special needs kids. Yes, a traumatized child is a special needs child. Break away from reactivity and parent with peace. Right now, I have a free class that you can access where I show you my parenting with understanding system of needs so you can be the secure parent. To access this free class, there are two ways. Way number one, go to my website, hicparenting.com, hicparenting.com, or you can go to my Instagram account. You can either go to HIC Parenting or High Impact Club, or search it for my name, Marcela Collier, parenting coach, and then DM me the word peace 25. Yes, the word peace and the number 25, and then I will send you the link to access this free class. So you can be that secure parent for that traumatized child, because that's what they're screaming for, relational safety. So how else can we help them? So let's go back to what they're struggling with, and let's pair it up with what helps them. If they struggle with unexpected changes, to make their life as predictable as possible. So if you know that you need to pick them up from school and that day you need to run an errand, prepare them beforehand. Even if it's like ideally in the early morning before they go to school or after school, instead of just that being a surprise for the kid. And you're like, but we just went to the bank. What's the deal? For them, it is. And if you say, but there are things that just happen that come without warning, even for us. I know that happens. So if you are in an unexpected change, even for you, as soon as you can, try to stop what you're doing and process what's happening to your child. Hey, daughter, I just received a call from your dad, and we need to turn the other way to go to the bank. And this is what you're going to experience. This is the amount of time we're going to be there. And then after that, we're going to go home and cook dinner. That will go a longer way than just brushing it off. For a traumatized child, it will go a long way. The second thing that will help a traumatized child who has a very hard time problem solving when they're upset is to not logicking with them when they're upset. When they're upset, focus on them regaining sense of safety. So it is not the why are you mad? Why are you cranky? Why are you so all over the place? Because they're not able to even recall, remember their hippocampus is a little bit smaller, they're not even able to recollect information to give you a logical answer. Instead, connect with them at an emotional level. I know it's hard. You're safe. I love you. You're going through something. I want to know what it is. Even I want to know what it is, but I'm not going to ask you right now. What could help you? Do you need a hug? Do you need to get out of this place? Tell me. I'm here for you. And number three, they need to feel that they can have a sense of autonomy, of control, because trauma is something that overpowered them so much that their sense of control and autonomy was completely overtaken when it happened. So, how can you return a sense of control to their lives, even in the smallest decisions? Even in the smallest decisions, it could be okay. So, what about if you're in charge of the GPS, if they're old enough, if they are 16? You're in charge of the GPS. We're just driving the other way to go to the bank, but this is the GPS. You tell me where to turn, where to go, if they're old enough. What about if they're even smaller decisions? Okay, so tomorrow for school, do you want me to pack you a lunchbox or do you want to get the school lunch? Simple as that. Especially on the things that makes them anxious. I was caring for a child who was very anxious about bath time. The more sense of control she could feel, the better. So instead of just prompting her, just get in the bath. Come on. We explored the bath a lot before she even got in the bath. We played in the bath. We played, outside the bath, but with our hands in the bath. She opened the water. She regulated the temperature. She put in the bath the things that she needed to put in the bath. And then that day she told me, I'm not ready. And she was not ready. And after that exploration and that sense of autonomy and control, one day she decided to go in. And it was a very quick bath. But then that's how I started building that tolerance to baths. And I don't know what happened to her life, in her past, that traumatized her around baths. So let's review them. Making their life as predictable as possible, restoring their sense of safety and leaving logic to the side for now until they feel a lot calmer, and releasing as much as control as you can. Give them autonomy in as many things as you can. That's what it actually would help a traumatized child. Ditch behavioral plans, reward systems and stickers and consequences. If you behave better, that doesn't help a traumatized kid. And focus on building your relationship with them. That's how they will start healing little by little their traumatized brain, especially, listen to me, especially if you are not their biological parent, if they're just getting to know you, if you are their foster parent, their adopted parent, their step parent, especially you. If this podcast episode gave you inspiration, a lot to think about, even transformation, would you share it with a friend? Just send it right now to another foster parent, to another adopted parent. I know that they need to hear this information. And remember that it only takes understanding of your child's needs and of your needs to raise secure children. I'll see you next time.